Pradeep, Rajneesh, Arpuraj, Captain Arpuraj, and Jaspal. Thank you for joining in. Jaspal, probably this is your first time, I think. Thank you for joining. And as you were saying, hopefully, when you are part of the tribe of book readers, book lovers, and book reviewers, probably it'll catch up on you, and you will also start reviewing books. And I have said this multiple times. I've shared this with Rajneesh also. These book reviews are not only about reviewing books, learning from books, and interacting with others. What I've also found is over a period, it improves your communication skills because you are able to articulate your thoughts properly, you are able to structure your thoughts, and you are able to answer questions as they are coming in. So it has become a really good source of improving our communication skills. So I would encourage all of you to participate. KK is an awesome storyteller. He's not a new face to us. He has done multiple book reviews. So he's an awesome storyteller. You'll pass in between, interact with him, share your thoughts, ask questions, make it as interactive as possible. And as I said, almost everybody will know KK. Probably for Jaspal, Mr. KK is he started with sales, moved to marketing. Now he's with a company called iMocha, but he's an amazing storyteller. He's able to narrate things in a really, really nice fashion. And he has reviewed multiple books on this Gravitas One show. And also I had a podcast with him as well. So that's all for KK. KK, over to you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That's a more kind introduction. Thank you. So why I chose this book, right? Like the story of how this book landed. I'm having this. I bought this book in a used bookstore. Actually, it was like very kind of serendipity sort of a thing, right? Like I took my kids and my wife for some place, and while on return, we entered into a used bookstore, and this book caught my eye. And I've never heard of. I know Paddy Upton. I've heard of him, but not too much beyond being like he was one of the support staff of Indian cricket team. That is what I was aware of. But then I, after started reading this book. So then what happened was, after reading few chapters, I was really inspired, and so it was so much of good stuff actually, because though he is called as mental conditioning coach, he has become a head coach for some of the elite cricketing teams. He has not only coached cricket teams, but also rugby teams, and I think maybe one or two more sports also. So most important was, like, Paddy also has been a head coach, which means for Rajasthan Royals in 2013-14, Rahul Dravid himself pitched for him, even though he is not actually from cricket, in the sense he's not a master of cricket like how other coaches will be. He's more like a mental conditioning coach, performance coach, or leadership coach sort of a thing. So the book was really good. So I wanted to gift to a few people, but then when I looked at it, the publisher was Westland, and they had shut shop, and the book was not even available. So even though I wanted to buy some of these books, maybe a few months before, it was not there for sale. The reason why I'm saying this is it's one of the very good books. It's not only talking about sports, it also talks about the journey of how they set India for success, starting from 2008 onwards for the 2011 Indian men's cricket World Cup team. And we all know, right, like in India, cricket is like the religion, and 500, 600, half a billion, maybe 500, 600 million people are there and rooting for the team. And if something goes wrong, they'll go and do damages at even these players' houses and other things. It can become a law and order problem also. So that was the start of this thing. And when Gary Christian who was actually invited by Mr. Sunil Gavaskar to lead the coach, to become the head coach of India team in 2007. So Gary was not very sure whether what he can do, because he has never been in a coach role, and somehow they got convinced under the board of cricket in India. They were convinced that Gary can take over this role, and Gary also told to the officials that if he is coming, then he also needs a Paddy to join with him as a mental conditioning coach. So in that point of time, this word itself was very new. There was no actual role called mental conditioning coach. There were head coaches, there were bowling coaches, there were fielding coaches, there were batting coaches. No mental conditioning or strategic leadership coach or that sort of a title itself. So it was a role that was something which was created at that point of time. And then how did they set it up, the entire journey? I mean, we all know that India won the World Cup in 2007. But what happens is, even before they took over the role, when Gary and Paddy was traveling from flight to South Africa to India, they wrote 4 goals that at the end of 3 years, they should be, I mean, these were the 4 goals according to them that they should be achieving for the team. And one was of course, India should become the #1 test team, which they have never become. That was one of the epitome of success in cricketing world. The second was to become to win the World Cup. Third was to create a happy team environment, and fourth was to become the best version of themselves, to become better people. So the third and fourth are very odd, right? Like any sporting coaches, they all look for success in that domain. But these 2 guys, even before they started their first stint as coach, they realized that better people make for better players, and that becomes a bigger thrust and bigger difference to the overall team itself, and people will do well. So what do you think? And I mean, from your, you must, there are a lot of senior people as well as people who are in their mid careers. What do you think, like in corporate environment, these sort of things, like one is the performance or the role for which you're hired, there is a performance to be done. Then there is the softer aspect called good team, happy culture, things like that. What are your thoughts about it? Like, do you think one influences the other, or what do you think about that? Anybody wants to share their thoughts?
I would encourage everybody to share your thoughts. As I said, let's make it interactive. KK, I'll share my thoughts first. Absolutely. I mean, again, when I started off, obviously, I would think, there's not much of a linkage. You just do what you need to do and get out, and so on and so forth. In one of the podcast interview with Abhinav, he mentioned one of the things: there is no super chickens at all. There is a psychological experiment that was done. They picked up the super chickens, and whether the team they composed a team of super chickens to see whether they can kind of produce better results. They found out, it is not. So there are no super chickens, so to speak. So it is the team environment. It is the sum of the parts is greater than the parts itself, right? So it is the parts coming together. So that's why you need to be a better version of yourself, but also you should be able to build a good team environment so that you can perform better. That's what I would say. I will listen to the others.
In my opinion, these 4 goals, reason being, whenever we have to start any work, then we must have a goal which we can achieve. And I think the coach, Gary Krishnan, and whatever the second coach you told me, they set up the goal that India has to be #1, and the better people and the happy team. These 2 points, I think, that set the mental state of the team to work in a culture where everyone is cooperating and they are happy. Then I think the point 1 and 2 will automatically come up. So as you said, if this influence the whole stuff, then in my opinion, yes. If you are working in a happy culture, the culture is good, you are appreciating the teams, and they will give the better performance. And I think this could be the reason that if your coaches are thinking in the way that they have to win the things, and they have the last 2 points like happy team and better people, then I think this could have played a good role to win the World Cup in 2011.
Just on that note, right? Like in today's environment in corporates, I think we are all paid to deliver certain work. But a lot of companies have also realized the importance of culture, importance of teams working together, team bonding, all of that, right? Like now after COVID, every company is really struggling on the second aspect, right? Like I mean, somehow work gets done, but they are not able to build that organizational together culture or things like that. So I think it is even more prevalent now, and even more a lot of companies have realized the importance of it. Like any other thoughts, any other experience, like how one supports the other? I wanted to share.
Yeah, hi KK, this is Gagan.
Hi.
I missed the first 5 minutes when you started, but while you were talking about the 3 or 4 points, this is I don't know, but I feel that on one end of the spectrum, you want or aspire to be number one, which itself brings in the angle of competition. And then there is also a mindset of come what may, we have to be number one. And then we also interweave the point that the culture, we have to have a happy culture. So I don't know, again, this is a question only which is meandering in my mind. Don't you think these two are two opposing facts? A happy culture and happy organization, at the same time being number one in what you are doing.
Well, on that, right, like again, there are points that Paddy talks in throughout the book, and he also has a chapter or few pages on being a psychopathic leaders or psychopaths being the leaders, right? That I mean, it's very rare to even write about something like this, right? Like he calls people who goes and delivers come what may and things like that. So they are like single individual star performers, but they entirely spoil the team. So it's like if something happens and it's positive, they take the credit. If something happens negative, they say it's on you, the team. And some of the examples he cites are, for example, Donald Trump has certain characters of that. For example, Lance Armstrong in sports, right? Like he
Yes.
I think he's coming broken, yeah.
Okay, is it broken? I was wondering whether it is only for me. Captain, do you want to share anything?
I still
like spoiled and so much
coming broken.
KK, your voice is broken.
In the meanwhile, just wanted to add to Gagan's point, Kavita here. So Gagan, while you write, what you're saying is very right in what should have been, probably 20 years ago, and continues to be there today, right? Anywhere where people think that you have very high performance culture, that the organization is not happy or there's not a proper, team culture available. But today things are changing. One is because of the generation that is coming along in terms of millennials and Gen Z, because they want more than just work and nothing else. So because of that, even companies are changing and culture is changing, and the effect of having a good team bonding and great company culture is also shown on the results, right, on the work. So that's one thing. I think KK is back now. So that's one thing. One point I just.
Hi, Joseph.
KK, you are still breaking. Captain, you have Arparaj. Do you have anything to share?
I thought that, I mean, I actually had an opportunity to meet Paddy Upton about a month back. So that's where I was able to relate to what KK was saying immediately. And we had a small discussion on this topic, and he was quick to relate to uh, the Indian team, what happened there. And then he said what happened with the Rajasthan Royals, a quick relation with the teams wherever he was. And at one point when in Rajasthan Royals, they did not have superstars, but then they had to manage ordinary people, and they had to make sure that these ordinary people perform much better. And at the same time, they had Royal Challengers Bangalore filled up with superstars. So he gave this example, and me and my friends were very quick to relate to that. We immediately thought about it and realized, yeah, it was like that. And then that was a good example which he gave us, and saying that these normal people he was able to make these normal people perform extraordinarily well. But then the other team, which was on the other side, filled up with superstars, they were not able to cope up with because of some reasons. And in that normal people also, he just highlighted Sanju Samson, who was just coming into picture. And then he was asked,
It's okay, no worries. Because it's
to go one down. And when he went one down, and Paddy Upton was asking him, okay, when you go there, just while away some balls for the first one over, just keep passing away so that I'll have the better batsman later. They can come and face the better batsman. That was against Mumbai Indians they played. But at that moment, Sanju Samson said that, don't worry, I know how to play this. And this guy is bowling like this, and I'm going to stand up to him and then punch him straight forward. And he said it so confident. And then Paddy Upton thought that, okay, go ahead. You have that confidence, so why should I stop you? Just go ahead and play your game. And whatever he said happened. And so that he related, he was quick to relate to that, and it gave us more clarity on what he's trying to say. So just normal people, when they are able to do this. I'll hand over to KK.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with both the things, right? I mean, we'll have to be better version of ourselves, which means we have to improve ourselves, but also the team environment. Both goes together. Purely from a company perspective, if you see GE, it used to be absolutely awesome during Jack Welch period, but then it was all so focused on performance and so on and so forth. It has actually dropped down. And I haven't verified it, but I was told that it has also been kicked out of NASDAQ index. I mean, for a GE, which has been about 150 years, for that to happen, that's a quick drop that had happened after Jack Welch. And then Uber is another typical case as well. The CEO, the team environment was not built in, so he had to face certain kind of regulatory actions and everything. So I think it is both have to go together. You can't just have a happy environment putting up with incompetent people, but also superstars, a team full of superstars, but not gelling together as a happy environment. I think both will have to go together. That's what I read. KK, are you there?
Yeah, I joined back. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So Joseph, because you touched upon GE, Paddy also talks about two principles or two elements. One is how leaders are, there are certain sort of leaders who are powerful, and there are certain sort of leaders who are influential. So he says the powerful leaders, they make things happen, and it's all around them and all of that. I think Jack will signify that. And then once the leader, that powerful leader is gone, it's the team is left high and dry, or maybe they don't last for long with the same level of performance. And there are the influential leaders. So what they do is they come and they influence the team to perform better. And the sort of influence they had before they join versus they after they leave, the influence on them, or the sort of influence they have on the team, right? It just goes up, and it is more positive for the performance culture itself. So I think these two attributes also he brings it up when he talks about what sort of leaders or coaches, teams perform well, or what's the sort of results one can expect. So speaking of the coaching model itself or things like that, he says, I mean, there are five ways in which you can impart learning. One is the starting with instruction based, which is more authoritarian. I think this is the old school stuff where the guy who is coming here knows all it all, knows it all, and he says, "I'm going to deliver you instructions. You go and execute the way I expect you to do." So here there is the issue with this is it has become more ineffective because this worked in an era where it was more of content sort of leadership, that you have the content more and you deliver that content was the leverage, and that is what was people look forward to. But in a knowledge era, you are able to access content and knowledge anywhere, and you don't need that actually. So that's why a guy like Paddy Upton, who's not been like even a university level cricketing player, is able to coach an IPL team. Which means that he says that you don't need the like the content or the technique, all of that is there within the team. My role as a coach here is to bring the collective intelligence that is residing within the team and share it across. Like every team had, like for example, Captain Arpudraj was talking about Rajasthan Royals. So it had Rahul Dravid, it had probably this guy like Shane Watson at some point of time, and it had Steve Smith, all of them. So these guys were like very senior players, and they had quite a bit of experience among themselves. And his only objective was how to transfer that knowledge to the rest of the team and also bring in the collective intelligence. He also cites some examples because Sanju Samson was quoted. I mean, these guys must be playing against each other or within the same team for quite a long time. So he says, as a head coach or a coach, my level of intelligence, or for example, we all have this computer analyst, right? So all of them have what is inferred knowledge, but these guys have seen on the field. Sanju Samson might have played against Srishant, for example, because they both from Kerala. So I mean, Sanju Samson might be knowing more about Srishant, his techniques and other things, more than anybody else in the rest of the team, because they both must have played against each other at school level, university level, or they might have been playing together. So that was the reason why MS Dhoni also went ahead of the informed Yuvraj Singh in the World Cup, because Muralidharan was bowling and Dhoni and Muralidharan was in CSK. So he said, Murali is bowling. I know his technique better, more than Yuvraj Singh. And Yuvraj Singh was a little weak in the spin. So I'll be the right person in this scenario. And he went ahead. So he calls it as the collective intelligence. So leadership, leaders as well as coaches, the objective here is not to be more instructive, not to say that, okay, I am the guy with most knowledge, but it's about bringing the collective intelligence within the team and sharing it across and making sure that, I think that's the way to make the team more successful rather than saying that, okay, I know it all. So that is one sort of learning style, the instruction based. The other aspect he says is advising. Here he says, okay, I give my opinion, and this is the best for you, and it's up to you to decide for yourself, right? So that is another sort of it's more like it's not as much as compulsive as the instruction based. It's just that it's like a little bit like a free floating, right? Like it's my opinion, you take it or not, it's your choice. The third is the mentoring aspect or the mentoring sort of a leadership style. Here it's like very specific way of helping, and one of the differentiating factors here is the guy who knows who is mentoring must be subject knowledge in that specific area. For example, Gary Kristen is the opening batsman. He can coach an opening batsman or probably the second or third down player, probably, but not, for example, Zahir Khan, who is a bowler, or Alan Donald, who is a bowler, because they come from the subject knowledge is very different. So mentoring happens, or it's possible when you have subject knowledge in that specific area, and you are able to you are able to say that, okay, if I were in that situation, this is what I would have done. If you put this against, for example, instruction based, it will be like, this is what you must do. all right? Versus in advising, they will say that this is what I suggest you to do. In mentoring, the term would be, this is what I would have done in this scenario. So there are 3 different ways in which you deliver the message. The fourth aspect of the learning style itself, he calls it as abdicating. There, it's more like, okay, I'm going to, I mean, this is like, okay, this is what I would say I would do, but I leave it to you again, right? Like, you figure it out for yourself, right? So that's the way. You don't take ownership of that in abdicating scenario, and I mean, you leave it to the fate of the player itself on that scenario. And the final version, he says, is the coaching. So coaching is something like, you make the person bring the best out of himself, so that even with or without you, he will be able to, I mean, deliver or bring out the best in different scenarios. So that's what modern day needs. As he says, the coaching is a means to help you find the best answer for yourself. So that's the way he puts it in the book. So these are the 5 ways he articulates learning styles, or I mean, in the sense, coaching itself, right? How the coaching different styles are prevalent. I mean, from your experience, right? Like, what do you think? Who was your best manager, for example, right? Or what sort of I mean, scenarios they exhibited, or whatever you want to share, right? Like, whom you liked working with more? If there are like 5 managers with these qualities, I'm sure I have the answer, but I mean, some are more experienced and some are like starting their career. So, I mean, it will be fun to hear what you call.
I'm a little bit scared, Krishna. But I want to touch upon the first thing that you talked about, instructional based. One of the things that I keep telling within the company is that we need to build institutional memory. It is not just we have a problem, some teams solved it, and they went it, but then that knowledge has to be shared with other teams as well, because we will face a similar kind of a problem or a same kind of a problem. So I liked what you said about that instructional based one, where he feels, Paddy feels, the responsibility of the coach is to bring out the best of the collective wisdom of their team. So I mean, that's one thing that I would say. Gagan, do you have a question? Please go ahead.
Yeah. Just wanted to check from KK. While he's talking about leadership and mentoring, does he handle specific questions related to when a coach or a mentor, or for that matter, a manager, makes a mistake? Does the leader come out and acknowledge or accept this, or he brushes it under the carpet? Though I understand idealistically he should come out and do, but do leaders acknowledge their mistake to juniors and then move forward, or do they just let it be the way it is? So just wanted to understand, because that is something that I have experienced in my corporate life, and wanted to understand if that kind of insight is also in this book.
So Gagan, I'm not very sure if I have read that in the book, but just as a preparation for this session, I listened to Harsha Bulgle's conversation with Paddy Upton after the release of the book. In that, there is a similar sort of a thing that comes up. So what Paddy says is, he goes and says, or Gary goes and says, see, I'm not the expert here. I don't need to have all the answers. I am going to ask the right questions, and I'm not going to say that, okay, I know everything. Right? If nobody nobody has a clue about certain thing, they will collectively go and figure it out and make sure that they are able to bring that knowledge within, or they may bring in some expert to help there. But nowhere a coach goes and says that, okay, I know everything, or I have all the answers for you. So you shoot me any questions and I'll answer for you. So that's not the approach that they take Especially Paddy's approach itself is not along those lines. So he says that I'm not the expert. So I'm just here to help you find the best answers. So that's the angle they take.
Gagan, I'll give a shot at the answering the question, though I've not read the book, but I'm answering the question that you asked. I think from a coach point of view, he is at a distance. And at a distance, he can always say, these are the mistakes I have done in my life. But I think what you are asking is, within a corporate environment, a leader or a manager or an executive, do they accept that they have made a mistake, either now or at a later point in time, or as the event is happening? What I have observed is, within a closed circle, the executives, the very confident executives, it is the insecure executives who never accepts they make a mistake. They want to beat their chest and say, I know everything, I'm always right, kind of a stuff. But the very secure executives, they always accept when when they have made a mistake, but they don't accept it in public. And there is a reason for it as well, is that when they accept, say for example, they have a company town hall, and they are saying, hey, I made a mistake. What's going to happen is, the junior employee may not have the context under which the executive made a judgment or a decision. And then the whole gang is going to feel, I cannot really trust the executive. But whereas within a closed group, where they were involved in decision making, data gathering, and execution, implementation, and all of those kinds of stuff, there they always go and say, yes, I think what I did was wrong. The data proves something else, and we should pivot, we should change, whatever it is. So that's what I have seen the most secure executives do. Amit, you asked a question. What was the fifth one? The fifth one is coaching. What he says is, the coach brings the best of the persons, and so that the person can go and do what is needed at any point in time. Much like what happens in the military, right? They coach the people, they simulate, but they are in the battlefield. In the battlefield, the soldiers will have to decide what to do at that particular moment. So that is what KK was talking about, the fifth point.
Okay.
Anyone wants to answer the question? Actually, KK asked. I have an answer. I'll give the answer. For me, the best manager I ever worked, he became my mentor. He became my good friend. He opened doors for me. It is Sastri. He actually brought in both the points that I mentioned, and then KK mentioned here. He brought the best out of me, but he would also go and fight for me, fight for the team as well. So I have modeled myself from his management and a leadership style. He's one heck of a manager, amazing manager. I've been lucky to work under him. Anyone else want to share who the best manager that you worked with? What are the characteristics? Anyone want to give it a shot?
So I would also like to share something, Joseph, on this, and for you also, KK. So I began my banking career in 96. So my first manager, because I've seen the private sector bank, they had just started in 94, 96, were the years when they had just started. So Mr. Atma, he was my branch manager, Mr. H.S. Atma. So he was the one I had come across from Bathinda. I had come to Chandigarh. I was not aware of the city. I did not even have a vehicle. I had no one to support me, to guide me. I was expected to be on the job from day one. So he ensured that someone from the office gave me the vehicle. I had a vehicle with me 24/7. Those simple little supports which he gave me actually made me, run along for 26 years. And that is what I've always tried to replicate with people. So it definitely, impacts a lot when such sort of people you meet, because, today when I see in the corporate world, so I also find a lot of challenges people, the youngsters are facing. because they are not being, either mentored or coached properly. That is the one, you expect someone to come and perform on day one itself. And on top of that, you have a few bosses who always want to micromanage you, right? So those are the challenges which people are facing. But fortunately, I was, I would say, fortunately enough, I was not amongst those, and that's why it lasted for a long time.
Thanks, thanks, Jaspalji.
Thank you.
Go ahead, KK.
Yeah, so in that angle, right, like the changing dynamics of leadership is also about creating. He talks about two sort of players they were trying to there were happening. One is creating thinking players and creating non-thinking players, right? Like as a continuation of that. So generally in cricket, it can be like you practice, then you play. There is a diagram actually, four-step diagram or four-part diagram, you can say. So practice and play on one side, which the player generally does, and then review and plan, which is usually the forte of the old school coaches or leaders. So if you are planning to create thinking players, the players should be able to do all the four aspects of it, and you're enabling them, or you're giving them all knowledge and how to go about it. But if you're in the process of creating non-thinking players, which was what was the era before, right? Like before these guys came in, because he tried to advocate this to Cricket South Africa even before he took over the role of this role in India. But Cricket South Africa team didn't, the management didn't entertain this sort of approach. But then these guys came and implemented that in India. And they went and won the World Cup. So practice and play generally is the doing part. Plan and review is usually the thinking part. So coaches usually have the thinking part with them in the old school stuff, and the doing part only was relegated to the players. So players were always looking up to the coach. One of the reasons he's also citing is, I think just before these guys came in, there was the one bad episode Indian team was going through. Greg Chappell, if I'm not wrong, he was the coach, and that time it was so much of animosity. The players were not trusting each other. It was one of the lowest points in Indian cricket, right? Like because 2007 World Cup was the worst performance of the Indian cricket team. I mean, since probably in the last 10 15 years of the World Cup thing. Because 2003, when they went to the finals, they lost to Australia in a very unfortunate situation. But the point in 2007, they even got knocked off during the league stages, and they lost to even Kenya or someone, if I'm not wrong. So actually, it was in the lowest point, and then these guys came and took over at that point of time from 2008 to 2011. So 3 years. So the whole idea of creating thinking players versus non-thinking players, I think this also applies to very much the corporate world. A lot of things what he says in these books is very relevant to leaders. It is very relevant to team managers. It's very relevant to any employee for that matter. It's very relevant to any preparation that you are trying to make, right? So he talks about want and need, right? Like players have a lot of pressure on them. So the moment you say, I need this, then you're putting a lot of pressure and things like that. And one of the objectives of these guys were, I think 13 or 14 months before itself. I mean, from there onwards, they started preparing the team mentally to take on the pressure. And because no team, which was the host team, whoever was hosting the World Cup, that team has never won the World Cup until then. And then imagine playing the final of the World Cup in Wankhede Stadium, which is Sachin's home ground, and Sachin's probably last World Cup. That was the also set up right at that point of time. So imagine the amount of pressure it might be coming on the team and all of that. So these guys started preparing the team. I think they had an Asia Cup final 13 months before in Sri Lanka. So that day they started this work. Actually, he says he and Gary started telling the players, see, imagine that you are playing the World Cup final. Imagine that anytime they start any match from there onwards for the 13 months, they will say, when we play the World Cup final, this is how, and then that's how they continue the conversation. When we play the final in Mumbai on April 2nd, this is what we will do. Like that, they started I mean, any team meetings before the match for the preparatory discussions, team meeting, all of that. So they started setting up the mindset from there onwards. So by the time they reached the World Cup, before even starting it, everyone has mentally visualized this probably like 30-40 times beforehand. So they are not facing the pressure for the first time on when the World Cup started. So they had set the team that mindset for 13 months. So that's the way they helped the team to overcome the pressure. And I think India was the first team to win the World Cup when they were also hosting. So it was an epic of shots for that matter, and very climatic finish with Dhoni 6, and I mean, players carrying Sachin Tendulkar through the Wankhede Stadium in front of his home ground, all of that. So I don't think it was like a it was like a perfect movie ending, right? Like so I think he also talks about the pep talk he must be giving just before the World Cup final day, and he must have practiced several times, he was saying. But then on the day, because these guys were already set and other things, he just went and said, it was one of the shortest speeches he says he gave to the team. He says, imagine that tomorrow is like a movie. You all know what your characters are. You all know what is the plot is going to be. You just go and need to and perform. Nothing else. You all have the capabilities. It's just that go and execute. Nothing more than that. I think that's he says that was the shortest speech I gave, even though I prepared so much multiple times a lot. But I think because it was not needed, everyone was in that zone already. So I think quite a lot of anecdotes very closely talking about several players and other things. So this is something which I feel is very good about the book itself. Any thoughts that you want to share about your World Cup memory of 2011, if you had watched?
I was going to ask Gagan. He's a lot more into affirmation, visualization, and everything.
Okay.
So I was going to ask him, what his thoughts. Does he have anything to share?
Yeah, Joseph, can you be? I missed your question. Can you elaborate?
So KK talked about, they always said when you play in the finals. So there was a lot of visualization happened. It was imprinted on their players' mind, so that there was not much of a pressure at a later point in time. So I was reminded. I know you are into a lot of visualization and affirmations and so on and so forth. So do you have anything to share? Is what I asked.
Yeah. I would say affirmations more than visualizations is something that I do often, and they also help me in a way to remain little calm in tedious or in difficult circumstances. So I feel that because of those affirmations that I do daily, and I guess this is true for people who do visualizations also. So yes, this is the technique that has helped me remain calm, which I never used to do before. I used to get really tensed up with so many haphazard butterflies moving in my tummy. But now with this practice, a little sense of calm has prevailed over me.
Thanks.
Wonderful, Gagan. Yeah. So I think on that note, which Gagan talked about, there's a episode where these guys bring in one of the daredevilry experts, or somebody like one guy. His name is Mike Horn. So he has done several snow-capped mountain expeditions, gone in several days in low volume, low oxygen environment. A lot of things, like you can imagine that probably he must have encountered death several times in his career, and he came back every time successfully. So he was one of Paddy's friend, and he brings in Mike Horn at one point of time to the Indian team to talk about things. And one of the things he says is, visualize what are the things you will do on the day, right? When you are in the World Cup final, visualize what are the things that will you will do on that day, the day before, or every match. What are the things that you do? The positive things also, he says, imagine being in the center of the field. There is like 50,000 crowd cheering and things like that. And in a way, they also help in preparing for the contingencies, right? Like when you visualize, you also don't only look at the positive aspects of it, but also say, what are the things that can go wrong? What are the things that you need to have contingency for, right? Because not always it's going to be success, but what are the things that you need to be prepared for, right? Like as you go to the field, what are the things that could have gone wrong, things like that. You prepare for yourself. And in the conversation that Harsha Bogle, this thing for the book itself, review itself, it talks about the importance of routine, right? Like routine for any exceptional talent, elite athletes, they all have a routine, he says. Even average people on for good days, if you look at it, Harsha Bogle says that he is an average guy, though we don't believe that, but he says on his good days, he must have followed a routine. He says as he goes back and contemplates, like when Paddy says that. So a lot of players, routine is important for two things. One is to also set into the rhythm, but also to calm down, right? Like because you would have already done enough amount of preparation, and you might have done this scenario and the things like that multiple times. But beyond a point, you also need to cool down, right? As you go into the situation, just before you go into the situation. So that's why most of the players, they listen to songs, they listen to music. Some people, like for example Sehwag, he also told this in several interviews also, that he sings on the ground. Actually there has been several instances where the stump mics have picked that he sings as he is batting, because he himself says that if I am not focused on, I mean, if I don't do that, my mind wanders everywhere, and it's very difficult to put a bottle to those thoughts. So when I sing, my mind is only focused on the words and what I should sing and things like that. So that keeps him calm down, and we know what's the sort of explosive player Sehwag is, right? Like at his best day, he can demolish any any bowler for that matter. And in the World Cup, I think he started every first ball with a 4, because that's the mindset he has. He goes and attacks, and that's the guy. I mean, all of those guys. And Sachin has a very clean room, and he has everything neatly packed and things like that. So a lot of every player has got different routines, and he says these routines should be your own habits and your own routines. You should not ape others, this thing, copy or things like that. It should be your own thing, which puts yourself in that zone. He talks about two types of, again, people, right? Like some will be little creative people, some will be more systematic process oriented guys. So the process oriented guys may be having an elaborate routine, whereas the creative guys could be having a shorter routine, but both have their own version of their routines, and they stick to that. I mean, maybe you can share, somebody can share what sort of things that you do going into a big day. It can be a job interview, it can be anything for them. It can be going into a business discussion, it can be exams that you have done, all of that, right?
Anyone wants to share?
Pradeep, Morgan, you want to share anything?
Okay, as soon as you asked, Pradeep dropped off.
Okay. Morgan, hope you don't drop off.
I'll share, Joseph.
Okay.
Yeah,
Please.
go ahead, Devan.
So one of the things which I did before interviews is to remind myself loudly that I belong in this company, right? Whichever company I'm interviewing for. For example, I interviewed with Yahoo multiple times. And then the trick which helped me was to tell myself that I belong here, right? The person who will be interviewing me is my colleague, right? And we are going to have a general discussion around tech, right? So that calmed me down, that shut off all the butterflies in my tummy, and so on and so forth, right? So this is one thing which has helped me.
Thanks, Devan. Anyone else wants to share anything? Pradeep, Amit?
Maybe it's being long. This is Rajnish.
Yeah, it's been long. I have not given the interview, but still, for the meetings, official meetings, sometimes with the management, I do try to prepare some points so that if any cross question comes in, then I should be prepared well, rather than fumbling for something and give the wrong answer. Or otherwise, I try to keep calm that I have no data about that, and I will come back to you later on. So this is what I do.
From my end, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mohan here. So Joseph and KK. So mine was like a very short routine. I made sure I continue to do my all routines on the day when I have something, interview or any big things. I make sure for example, it could be a short walk or it could be a cycling. I don't want to miss my routine because if I complete that, I feel confident, bit more accomplished, so that I can give my 100% during the big day. I think that's the baseline I follow. I think that helps so far. So that's one I would just want to share.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, Pradeep, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Yeah, this totally reminds me my engineering days. In 2011, I watched World Cup in hostel. It was awesome, and whenever I get tense, I go to exam just before going to exam. I used to watch some songs, some movies some scenes which I used to like, which used to calms me down, and I was able to write. I was able to remember all the topics which I read, and some of the songs actually helped me in achieving these things. But it was good. It just reminds me most of my engineering days.
Kavita, you want to share?
Yeah, just two things that I religiously have done since my student days are eat well before anything, any important interview or whatever it is, meeting, and sleep the previous night. If I have enough time, yes, that walk, definitely. And also off late, what has started working more for me is, to kind of that affirmation and that visualization that it's going to be a great meeting, right? So that itself, gives you a very different perspective to go into a meeting or an interview. So come what may, the outcome is.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think the sleep and eating, I think what you do normally, if you do that, your brain kind of gets primed that it's a normal day. You don't have to get tense. There's nothing, critical kind of a stuff. So if you can have a normal routine, and that's why routine matters, is that your brain gets that it's a normal day, nothing to worry about. On the visualization, the only thing that I want to add, I think I mentioned this earlier also, is that the way I visualize is not the outcome, but the process. As the day goes through, I think, which is what KK was also talking about, the positives and the negatives. So even when I have meetings, like, say, for example, a CXO meeting or anything, I visualize me talking, but not after the meeting kind of a visualization. So me talking, or even when I have to give a presentation, I have to go to a college and give a speech, I visualize and rehearse the speech, not what happens after the speech. So that's how I prepare.
Great. I think we all are, echoing a lot of Paddy's thoughts in this call. So I think we are all very good leaders at this point of time, I could say. One of the things, because Joseph, you told about this process versus outcome, right? So that also he talks about. He says that always look at how best you can give the performance, but not the outcome. Do not focus on the outcome, but how much within the team. Also, Gary and Paddy created a culture where everyone is made responsible for their performance, but not for the outcome, because outcome is not in their hands. And when you are focused on the outcome, then the fear of failure, fear of success, what do you do in success, what do you do in failure, all of those additional pressure comes in, which actually brings down the performance. But they both were very particular that they will focus on the process, and they will hold each player accountable for their performance, but not for the outcome. And I think he cites multiple players like Rahul Dravid or Hashim Amla, everyone. These elite players, they all are very particular about, okay, I have given my 100%, and I mean, come what may, I'll be the same person as I will be, without having the fear of what will others will think if I don't hit a century or whatever, right? Like, so I'll go there and deliver what it is. So that's what he talks about. We are in the last 4-5 minutes. I'll just touch upon one final point. In one of the chapters, he talks about playing to strengths. Most of the times, organizations and everyone, we all talk about, okay, how we can improve the weakness, how we can add more muscle to the help anybody overcome the weakness. But he says, I think we all should invest more time on playing to the strengths, or focus on the strengths than, I mean, the weakness part. It gives actually a good equation also. So talent plus smart work is strength actually. Non-talent plus smart work is learned skill. So you can, I mean, even if you don't have a talent, but you can learn that skill. But what happens is, if you play to your strength plus you do that regularly, for example, you have natural talent for maybe playing a piano, then you will be becoming an excellent at it. Like, for example, Sachin Tendulkar is a born talent with respect to batting. So he went and practiced every day. How many times he could practice, he did that. And he was excellent at it. But then you have a learned skill. With that, even with regular application, you can only become good at it. You may not become excellent at it. And he has a counter opinion to Malcolm Gladwell, because Malcolm Gladwell has this 10,000 hour principle. What he says is, one of the concept he's not okay with it is, Malcolm Gladwell's principle doesn't bring the factor of talent or talent into this, even though, like, for example, if I don't have a talent for music or something, even if I practice 10,000 hours, I don't think I can become great, excellent at it. I can play decent notes and decent things, but I don't think I can become an A.R. Rahman for that matter, right? Like, so there is a difference. So it gives an example of that with Sehwag, and with that, I think we can close. Sehwag as a player, if you bowl a short pitch to delivery, he always goes for a hook shot. And most of the times what happens is bowlers do that, fast bowlers do that, and he get caught with that. So Gary Kristen found that and said that, see, this is your weakness. Now, what we should do is, we should not allow you should not play that shot. Just control that time. And they coached him. They made him practice. And Sehwag was against it. He says, no, when the bowler bowls it, if you punish it, next time they will not bowl. But Gary tells to Sehwag that, see, most of the times you get caught. And I mean, South African bowlers or any fast bowlers try this with you. So you get very, I mean, interested about it, and you go for that shot. And then I think in 2008, immediately after they came, they did this with Sehwag, and Sehwag controlled those shots. Whenever that shot bounces come, he ducked and he ducked and he ducked. And I think one of his test 300s came in by practicing that. Like the first 300 for Sehwag probably with South Africa came in with that sort of practice. And then he went on to win Wisden Cricketer of the Year award in that same year, because he scored the most number of test runs in that year. And so with that, I think I'd like to close this, because a lot of times he says fixing weakness is what a lot of companies do or try to do this. But I think when you focus on the strengths, it's much better. You get more, the multiplier effect is higher than fixing weakness.
Lovely. Finished on time, 8 o'clock. Very meticulous, KK. Thank you so much. You are highly reliable. I can bank on you at any point in time. So thank you so much, KK. As Gagan says, it's we thoroughly enjoyed. Anyone else have any comments before we close off? For whatever, Gagan, you want to say something?
No, Joseph, I'm good. Thank you, KK. It's wonderful listening to you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, Gagan, everyone for joining. I just wanted to say one disclaimer. I only was able to cover like 4 or 5 chapters because it's so much actually packed. Maybe each chapter we can do one session. That sort of a book it is, because you have on one side actual anecdotes about cricketing stuff itself. On the other hand, you also have so much of like learnings and principles that we all can implement in our actual professional lives. So I feel this is a very important book, and it's a hidden gem. Actually, not many people know this. There is a book like this, so hopefully all of you buy and read. Now it is available on Amazon. I just checked before this session. Okay, this book is now available on Amazon. Yeah, it's like 250 to 60 rupees.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We will have at least twice a month. So I encourage anyone to review books. Whoever is interested. Thank you very much. Gagan, I see that you are still driving. Drive safe. Everybody, thank you.